Imagine standing at the edge of a vast unexplored territory, a landscape of peaks and valleys, hidden pathways and unexpected turns. Now realize that this territory isn't some distant land. It's the landscape of your own mind. Every day we navigate this internal terrain, yet most of us are doing so without a map, stumbling through fog, wondering why we keep ending up in the same valleys of frustration, the same peaks of anxiety, the same cycles of unproductive behavior. 10 years ago, I found myself trapped in my own mental maze. Every morning I would wake up determined to change, to break free from patterns that were holding me back. And every evening I would find myself exactly where I started, wondering what invisible force kept pulling me back. The answers were there, but I was looking at them through a clouded lens, trying to solve a puzzle without seeing all the pieces. Here's the truth that transformed my life and the lives of thousands I've worked with. Your mind is not a mystery to be solved. It's a territory to be mapped. Every habit, every reaction, every pattern of thought leaves traces on this landscape. These aren't random occurrences. They're well-worn paths created by years of repetition. And just like any territory, once mapped, it becomes navigable, manageable, transformable. You're here today because something inside you knows there's more clarity, more control, more potential waiting to be unleashed. You're right. But the journey to that potential doesn't begin with change. It begins with understanding the terrain of your mind with such clarity that transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Today we're going to embark on a journey together, a journey that will give you the tools to become the cartographer of your own consciousness. Because once you can map your mind, you can master your life. Let me show you how. Let me share a startling reality. 95% of your daily actions are automated, running on mental autopilot. Think about that for a moment. The majority of your decisions, reactions, and behaviors aren't conscious choices. They're programmed responses playing out beneath your awareness. We're all living our lives thinking we're in the driver's seat, when in reality, we're often just passengers to our own programmed patterns. The cost of this mental blindness is staggering. Consider Sarah, a brilliant executive who kept sabotaging her presentations with anxiety, not realizing her morning coffee ritual was amplifying her stress response. Or Michael, who couldn't understand why his relationships kept failing, unaware that his defensive responses were triggered by subtle tones of voice that reminded him of past experiences. These aren't isolated cases. They represent the invisible chains that hold back millions. Research from cognitive science reveals something fascinating. Our brains process about 11 million bits of information every second, but our conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits.
That means we're operating on less than 1% of our brain's actual data processing. It's like trying to navigate a vast ocean using only what you can see through a drinking straw.
This limited awareness affects every aspect of our lives. In careers, it shows up as procrastination we can't seem to break, imposter syndrome we can't shake, or stress patterns we can't escape. In relationships, it manifests as reactive behaviors we regret, communication patterns that create distance, or emotional triggers we can't control. In health, it appears as stress eating, exercise avoidance, or sleep habits that drain our energy. But here's where it gets interesting. This autopilot system isn't a design flaw, it's a feature. Your brain created these automated patterns to be efficient, to help you survive and navigate your world without having to consciously think about every single action. The problem isn't the automation. It's our lack of awareness about how these patterns were programmed and how they're running our lives. The power of mental awareness lies not in fighting these patterns, but in understanding them. When you develop this awareness, something remarkable happens. Those invisible chains become visible. The unconscious becomes conscious. The automatic becomes optional. This isn't just theory. It's transformed the lives of Olympic athletes who've broken through performance plateaus, business leaders who've overcome decision paralysis, and countless individuals who've finally broken free from cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. Think of mental awareness as turning on the lights in a dark room where you've been stumbling around. Suddenly you can see the furniture you've been bumping into, the paths that are actually clear, and the doors that lead to new possibilities. This awareness doesn't just change how you see your mind, it changes how you live your life. The question isn't whether these patterns are influencing you. They are. The question is, are you ready to see them clearly for the first time? Before we dive into the transformative power of mind mapping, we must first confront the three grand illusions that keep us trapped in mental fog. These illusions are so pervasive, so convincing, that they've become accepted truths in our society. Yet they're the very barriers blocking your path to true mental clarity. The first illusion is the myth of control. How many times have you told yourself, starting tomorrow, I'll just force myself to change? We've been conditioned to believe that change is simply a matter of exerting more control. Like trying to hold back a river with your bare hands, we think if we just push harder, grip tighter, we'll succeed. Let me share a powerful truth. Control is not the answer. Understanding is. Take Marcus, a top-performing sales director who thought he could control his way out of stress-induced insomnia. He tried forcing himself to sleep earlier, restricting his activities, creating rigid schedules. The result? More anxiety, worse sleep. Only when he mapped his mental patterns did he discover that his evening relaxation routine was actually triggering his stress response. The second illusion is the willpower trap. We've all fallen for this one, believing that willpower alone is enough to overcome ingrained patterns. It's like trying to break through a steel door by repeatedly throwing yourself against it, instead of learning how the lock works. Research shows that willpower is a finite resource, yet we keep trying to use it as an infinite solution. Consider Amira, a talented artist who believed she could willpower her way through creative blocks. Each failure to push through left her feeling more depleted, more discouraged. The breakthrough came when she stopped trying to force creativity and started mapping the conditions that naturally enhanced her creative flow. The third and perhaps most dangerous illusion is the quick fix fantasy. In our instant gratification world, we've been sold the idea that transformation should be fast, easy, and painless. This illusion is particularly seductive because it plays into our desire for immediate results. But true mental transformation doesn't work like a software update. You can't simply download new patterns and delete old ones. This illusion keeps us jumping from one solution to another, never giving ourselves the time to develop real understanding. These illusions don't just exist in isolation. They reinforce each other, creating a web of resistance to genuine change. When quick fixes fail, we double down on control. When control fails, we blame our willpower. When willpower depletes, we search for another quick fix. And the cycle continues. But here's the liberating truth. Once you see these illusions for what they are, they lose their power over you. Understanding replaces control. Strategy replaces willpower. Patient progress replaces quick fixes. This isn't about adding more tools to your mental toolbox. It's about fundamentally changing how you approach your own mind. Think of these illusions as old maps that have led you down the wrong paths. They might have seemed reliable, they might have been passed down with good intentions, but they're based on outdated understanding of how the mind truly works. Today you begin drawing a new map based not on illusions, but on clear-eyed understanding of your mental landscape. Let me introduce you to a revolutionary approach that will transform how you understand your mind. The TBR Method, trigger, behavior, result. This isn't just another self-help technique. It's a fundamental shift in how we understand our mental patterns. Think of your mind like a sophisticated smartphone. You wouldn't try to optimize its performance without understanding how its operating system works. Yet that's exactly what we do with our minds. We try to change outputs without understanding inputs, attempt to modify behaviors without recognizing triggers, and wonder why the same patterns keep repeating. The TBR method breaks this cycle by revealing the hidden architecture of your mental patterns. Every behavior, every reaction, every habit follows this three-part sequence. The trigger is your activation point. It could be a time of day, an emotion, a person's tone of voice, or even a subtle thought. The behavior is your automated response, what you actually do, say, or think. The result is the outcome, how you feel, what you gain, or what you avoid. Let me share why traditional approaches to mental change often fail. Most methods focus solely on behavior modification, the middle part of the sequence. It's like trying to edit a movie by only looking at the middle scenes, without understanding the setup or the resolution. You might make temporary changes, but the full story remains unchanged. The science behind this approach is fascinating. Neuroscience research shows that our brains are constantly creating neural pathways based on repeated patterns. These pathways are like highways in your mind. The more they're traveled, the more established they become. But here's the crucial insight. You can't erase these highways. What you can do is understand their entry points, triggers, and exit ramps, results, and then build new, more beneficial routes. Let me share a powerful example. Maya, a corporate lawyer, struggled with overwhelming anxiety during client meetings. Traditional advice told her to just stay calm or breathe deeply, focusing only on the behavior. When she applied the TBR method, she discovered something remarkable. Her trigger wasn't the meetings themselves, but the 10 minutes before, when she would mentally rehearse all possible worst-case scenarios. The behavior wasn't just anxiety, it was a complex pattern of physical tension, negative self-talk, and defensive posturing. The result wasn't just discomfort. It was a false sense of preparation, a misguided attempt at control. This mapping changed everything. Instead of fighting the anxiety, she could now see its complete architecture. She understood that her mind was trying to protect her through preparation, but using an outdated strategy. With this clarity, she could build new pathways that served the same protective purpose, but in more effective ways. The transformative power of the TBR method lies in its comprehensiveness. It doesn't just address symptoms, it reveals the entire system at work. When you map your mind this way, you start seeing patterns everywhere. Why you reach for your phone every time you feel a hint of boredom. How certain words trigger defensive reactions in conversations. Why productivity techniques work some days but fail on others. How stress patterns connect to eating habits. Why some relationships repeatedly trigger specific emotional responses. But here's what makes this revolution truly powerful. It's not just about understanding, it's about liberation. When you see the full pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. The trigger loses its automatic power. The behavior becomes a choice rather than a compulsion. The result becomes something you can consciously evaluate rather than blindly accept. This isn't just theory. The TBR method has been transformative across diverse fields, from Olympic athletes optimizing performance patterns to executives breaking through decision-making blocks, from individuals overcoming anxiety to teams revolutionizing their communication dynamics. You might be thinking, this sounds complex. But remember, you're not learning something new. You're becoming aware of something that's already operating in your life. The patterns are already there. The triggers are already influencing you. The behaviors are already playing out. The results are already shaping your experience. All we're doing is turning on the lights so you can see what's been happening in the dark. This is where real transformation begins. Not with force, not with willpower, not with quick fixes, but with clear, comprehensive understanding of your mental landscape. Are you ready to start mapping? In your journey to master your mind, understanding the map is only the beginning. True mastery comes through a systematic approach. 5 critical steps that transform awareness into lasting change. Let me walk you through each phase of this transformative process. Step 1, the awareness phase. This is where your journey begins, not with action, but with observation. Think of yourself as an anthropologist studying a newly discovered civilization. Your task isn't to judge or change, but to observe with genuine curiosity. Start by creating what I call awareness windows, designated periods of 5-10 minutes throughout your day where you simply notice your mental patterns. During these windows, pay attention to your emotional state changes, physical sensations in your body, recurring thoughts and mental chatter, situations that trigger strong reactions, your default responses to stress or pressure. The key here is observation without intervention. You're not trying to fix anything yet. You're building your awareness muscles, developing what psychologists call metacognition, the ability to observe your own mental processes. Step 2, the documentation phase. Now we move from passive observation to active documentation. This is where patterns start becoming visible. Think of this as creating a personal mental atlas. Your documentation methods might include a simple notebook where you track trigger behavior result sequences, a digital app for real-time pattern logging, voice notes capturing immediate reactions, end-of-day reflection sessions. The power of documentation lies in its ability to transform vague feelings into concrete data. When you see your patterns on paper, they become objective rather than emotional. You start noticing connections you never saw before. Step 3, the analysis phase. This is where the magic of pattern recognition begins. With your documented observations, you can start identifying common triggers that initiate negative patterns, hidden connections between seemingly unrelated behaviors, the real rewards driving your habitual responses, environmental factors influencing your mental state. During analysis, you might discover that your afternoon energy crash isn't just about lack of sleep, it's connected to morning decision patterns. Or that your procrastination isn't about laziness, it's a response to perfectionist triggers you never noticed before. Step 4, the strategy phase. With clear understanding comes strategic power. This phase is about designing new neural pathways that serve your goals. But remember, we're not trying to demolish old patterns. We're building better alternatives. Your strategy should include environmental redesign to support new patterns, specific response plans for identified triggers, alternative behaviors that provide similar rewards, progress tracking mechanisms, support system engagement. The key here is specificity. Vague goals like be less anxious become concrete strategies like when I feel the chest tightness that precedes anxiety, trigger, I'll do 2 minutes of box breathing, new behavior, to achieve calm clarity, desired result. Step 5, the implementation phase. This is where theory meets reality. Implementation isn't about perfect execution, it's about conscious experimentation. You'll test your new strategies in real-world situations. Gather data on what works and what doesn't. Adjust your approach based on results. Celebrate small wins and learn from setbacks. Gradually expand your changes to wider areas of life. The key to successful implementation is starting small. Don't try to change everything at once. Pick one pattern, one trigger, one new response, master it, then expand. What makes these 5 steps powerful is their synergy. Each builds on the previous, creating a comprehensive system for mental transformation. But here's the crucial insight. This isn't a linear process. You'll cycle through these steps multiple times, each cycle bringing deeper understanding and more refined strategies. Think of it like exploring a new city. First, you notice the main streets, awareness. Then you start making notes about interesting places, documentation. You begin to understand how different neighborhoods connect, analysis. You plan efficient routes to your destinations, strategy. Finally, you actually navigate the city with confidence, implementation. The beauty of this system is its flexibility. Whether you're dealing with professional challenges, emotional patterns, relationship dynamics, personal habits, creative blocks. These 5 steps provide a framework for understanding and transformation. Remember, you're not trying to achieve perfection. You're developing a new relationship with your mind. One based on understanding rather than force, strategy rather than struggle. progress rather than perfection. As you embark on this journey of mind mapping, let me warn you about the 3 most dangerous pitfalls that can derail your progress, and more importantly, show you how to overcome them. The rush to change trap. The most common pitfall I see is the immediate urge to fix everything at once. You start seeing your patterns clearly, and suddenly you want to change them all simultaneously. It's like discovering 100 switches in a dark room and trying to flip them all at once. You'll likely trip over your own feet. The solution is what I call single stream focus. Choose one pattern, preferably one that has a significant impact but isn't your most challenging. Master it. Use it as a learning laboratory. Each pattern you master teaches you something valuable about your change process. The perfectionism paralysis. This one is subtle but powerful. You start mapping your mind and become overwhelmed by the complexity of your patterns. You worry about getting it exactly right. You spend so much time trying to create the perfect map that you never actually start the journey. The antidote is progressive mapping. Your first map doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be useful. Start with rough sketches. Capture the main landmarks. Let the details emerge through experience. Remember, even Google Maps started with basic roadways before adding terrain, traffic patterns, and street view. Analysis paralysis. This is where you get stuck in endless observation and documentation, constantly finding new patterns to analyze but never moving into action. It's like being so fascinated by the mechanics of swimming that you never actually get in the pool. The solution is the action learning loop. For every 3 observations you make, commit to one small experiment. This maintains the balance between understanding and action. Your actions will reveal new patterns, leading to better understanding, creating a positive cycle of growth. These pitfalls aren't failures, they're natural parts of the journey. In fact, encountering them often means you're on the right track. The key is recognizing them quickly and applying the appropriate solution. Remember, progress isn't about avoiding these pitfalls completely, it's about recognizing them sooner, recovering faster, and learning from each experience. Every time you catch yourself in one of these traps, your awareness muscles grow stronger. Your journey of mind mapping isn't about reaching a perfect destination. It's about becoming an increasingly skilled navigator of your own mental terrain. Let me share with you the 3 fundamental laws that govern all mental transformation. These aren't just principles. They're the natural laws that operate whether we acknowledge them or not. The law of awareness states that what you can observe, you can influence. Your power to change anything begins with your ability to see it clearly. This law operates like gravity. It's always in effect, waiting to be utilized. Every moment of awareness creates a doorway to potential change. The law of patience declares that lasting transformation moves at the speed of integration, not intention. Your mind changes like a garden grows. You can't force it, but you can create optimal conditions for growth. This law reminds us that quick changes are often shallow changes, while lasting transformation requires time to root deeply. The law of persistence reveals that progress is never linear, but cumulative momentum is unstoppable. Like water shaping stone, it's not the intensity of your efforts, but their consistency that creates lasting change. Small, consistent steps in the right direction will always overcome sporadic bursts of massive effort. These laws aren't just theoretical constructs, they're your allies in transformation. When you align with them rather than fight against them, you tap into the natural flow of how your mind actually evolves and grows. Your journey of mental transformation begins with a single commitment, not to perfection, but to progress. Right now, in this moment, you have everything you need to begin mapping your mind. Here's your 30-day challenge. Start tomorrow morning with just 5 minutes of observation. Keep a small notebook by your bed. When you wake up, before reaching for your phone or starting your day, simply notice your first thoughts, your first emotional state, your first physical sensations. Write them down. Build this practice day by day. By the end of week 1, you'll have your first mental map emerging. By week 2, patterns will become visible. By week 3, you'll be seeing connections you never noticed before. By week 4, you'll have a clearer understanding of your mental terrain than most people gain in years. Imagine 1 month from now, standing exactly where you are, but with a completely new level of mental clarity. Imagine understanding why you do what you do, why you feel what you feel, why you think what you think. The path is clear. The tools are in your hands. The only question remaining is, will you take the first step? Your mind is waiting to be mapped. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed. Your future self is waiting to thank you for starting today. Rise up, take action, begin now.